So I'd like to start off by taking a minute to listen to this piece. That's plenty to get the message of it. That's a classical guitar piece performed by one guitarist, so we'd normally call that a solo. But today I'm going to convince you that it's actually a duet. Not just the performer, but the luthier, which is the person who builds the guitar. I want you guys to gain an appreciation for the art form that is luthiery. So today I brought with me a bass ukulele that I built this summer. It's essentially a bass, but the size of a ukulele. And so I've done a lot of research and learning how to build instruments, and I'll walk you through the whole process. First is the design. Music is very closely interrelated with math, going all the way back to the Greeks. It was one of the subjects studied in the quadrivium, which is their word for subjects driven by logic, as Boris Reitman says. There's these things on most stringed instruments called frets. Each fret holds the string down so that when you play it, it plays at that certain position. It cuts the length of the string to that distance. That causes the vibration to change frequency, so you hear a different note. To calculate the positions of the frets, a long time ago, they used the rule of 18, which is just divide the distance by 18 and then keep dividing by 18. Now we have a slightly better constant, 17.817, but essentially it's the same thing. Secondly, there's materials. So every guitarist will tell you that the material for the soundboard and the back is super important and totally dictates the sound. But there's a recent study by the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America that totally disproved this. They had people playing identical guitars made out of different woods in the dark, and no one could tell the difference. That being said, there's still people who get paid a whole bunch of money to go find like trees, whole trees, chop them down, and then find inside the tree the best pieces to form the soundboard of the guitar, which is this piece here. So they proved that the type of wood doesn't matter, but people still argue that where the wood comes from or the way the grain's going, I guess the quality of the piece of wood does matter, and I buy that. But regardless, they said the type of wood didn't matter, so I built it out of the prettiest wood I could find for fairly cheap. Construction, let's see. So this is the hard part. The design's easy. When you're building it, first you have to bend the sides all the way around, and then you have to cut this wood to this fairly precise thickness and glue everything together. And there's this one step called bracing that basically separates a guitar from a box with some strings. Bracing is installing these little braces that go across here on the top to affect the way that it vibrates. So when you hear a note, it's the vibration of air hitting your ears. But just a string alone isn't enough to make that noise. The string vibration is transmitted onto this piece and then moves this whole air column in here. And the bracing affects the way it vibrates. So think qualities like warmth or color or even how loud a note is. And then finally, aesthetics. This is the fun stuff. Cutting shapes like this in the top, or scalloping the edges of the saddle, or even little things like this, or these little dot inlays. I carved a W into the top. It's kind of hard to see. It's not very high contrast, but for Will. And that's really putting the finishing touches on, making your own. And so I don't play the bass, but I built one, so now I've got one. And that's the really fun part. So I hope that, without getting overly technical into the process of building this, I've helped you guys gain an appreciation for what really goes into creating an instrument and how that can have as much of an effect on the sound you hear as the skill of the guitarist or the player. Thank you.